Hello everyone. Today, I will be talking about the cardiovascular system, which is an essential part of the body. It is a complex network responsible for transporting blood, nutrients, oxygen, hormones, and waste products throughout the body. It plays a critical role in maintaining homeostasis, ensuring that each cell receives the resources it needs for survival and proper function. Therefore, let's take a look at the anatomy of these system components. First, let's look at the anatomy of blood vessels, which consists of three types: arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries carry oxygen-rich blood away from the heart to the body's tissues and organs. They are thick-walled and muscular, allowing them to withstand and regulate the high pressure of blood being pumped from the heart. Veins carry oxygen-poor blood back to the heart. They have thinner walls compared to arteries and often have valves to prevent blood from flowing backward. Lastly is the capillaries. Capillaries are tiny, thin-walled blood vessels that connect arteries and veins. The thin walls of capillaries allows oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, and waste product to diffuse easily in and out of the blood. The external surface of the heart consists of aorta, pulmonary arteries, pulmonary veins, superior and inferior vena cava, coronary arteries, and coronary sinus. There are two main coronary arteries, left coronary artery and right coronary artery. Left coronary artery branch into the left anterior descending artery and the left circumflex artery, supplying blood to the left side of the heart, including the left atrium, left ventricle, and part of the interventricular septum. For the right coronary artery, it supplies blood to the right side of the heart, including the right atrium, right ventricle, and part of the interventricular septum. Lastly is the coronary sinus. It is located on the posterior surface of the heart. It collects the oxygenated blood from the heart muscle and returns it to the right atrium. The coronary sinus is formed by several smaller veins that drain the heart muscle, such as the great cardiac vein, middle cardiac vein, and small cardiac vein. In the frontal section of the heart, there are several key structures that can be observed. First is the right and left atrium. The right atrium is located on the right side of the heart and receives the oxygenated blood from the body via the superior and inferior vena cava. The left atrium is located on the left side and receives oxygenated blood from the lungs through the pulmonary veins. The right ventricle is situated below the right atrium and pumps the oxygenated blood into the pulmonary artery, which sends it to the lungs for oxygenation. Meanwhile, the left ventricle is located beneath the left atrium and pumps oxygenated blood into the aorta, which distributes it to the rest of the body. And lastly, the valves. First is the tricuspid valve, which is located between the right atrium and right ventricle, ensuring blood flows in one direction. Next is the mitral valve, which is located between the left atrium and left ventricle, also ensuring one-way blood flow. Pulmonary valve, between the right ventricle and pulmonary artery, and the aortic valve, which is located between the left ventricle and the aorta. Finally, the heart was covered with several layers. The first layer is pericardium, a protective sac surrounding the heart. Next is the heart's wall. The first layer is the epicardium, the outer layer of the heart, parts of the heart's protective covering, which is responsible to protect the heart and reduce friction as the heart beats, helping it move smoothly inside the chest. Next is the myocardium. It is the thick muscle layer of the heart, which is responsible to contract and relax to pump blood throughout the body. And lastly, the endocardium, the smooth inner lining of the heart chambers, which is responsible to help blood flow smoothly through the heart and protects the heart's inner surfaces. Now that we have learned about the anatomy of the heart, let's explore how it works. Let's look at the cardiac cycle. During diastole, blood fills the atria and ventricles. The sinoatrial node initiates an electrical impulse that triggers atrial contraction, pushing blood into the ventricles during atrial systole. Next, the impulse then travels to the atrioventricular node, which delays it before transmitting it through the bundle of His, right and left bundle branches and Purkinje fibers. In ventricular systole, the ventricles contract, forcing blood into the pulmonary arteries and aorta. The AV valves close to prevent backflow, while the semilunar valve open allowing blood to exit the heart, completing the contraction phase. The loop-doop sound corresponds to the closure of the heart valves. Next is the pathway of blood flow. Our cardiovascular system divided into two circulation, which is pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. For pulmonary circulation, the blood moves from the right ventricle to the lungs via the pulmonary arteries. Pulmonary arteries carry blood low in oxygen exclusively to the lungs for gas exchange. Pulmonary veins then return freshly oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left atrium. For systemic circulation, as oxygenated blood from the lungs flow into the left ventricle from the left atrium, the systemic circuit moves blood from the left ventricle to the whole body via the aorta. After capillary exchange, systemic veins carries the oxygenated blood back to the heart via superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Now, let's dive into the biochemistry that supports its function. Blood clotting or coagulation is a chemical process that helps stop bleeding when a blood vessel is injured. It involves a series of reactions where proteins in the blood are activated. These proteins work with platelets and calcium to form a mesh of fibrin, creating a clot to seal the wound. The process is controlled to prevent excessive clotting and protect blood flow in the cardiovascular system. The first stage of the blood clotting is divided into two, which is the intrinsic pathway and extrinsic pathway. Both produce the prothrombin activator that will activate the prothrombin into thrombin, and thrombin activate the fibrinogen into fibrin and form blood clot. The intrinsic pathway is triggered when blood comes into contact with the damaged blood vessel wall. Meanwhile, the extrinsic pathway is much faster and is triggered by tissue damage outside the blood vessels. Now, let's talk about some common disease related to this system. First is the coronary artery disease. It is caused by the cholesterol and other substances in the blood stick to the walls of the arteries. The symptoms are chest pain, shortness of breath, and heart attack. Meanwhile, the treatment are the lifestyle changes, statins, angioplasty, or coronary artery bypass surgery. Next is the hypertension, which is caused by the high blood pressure from genetics, diet, or stress. The symptom is often asymptomatic, which can lead to stroke or heart failure. The treatments are medications or low-salt diet. Finally, I will introduce a specialist who inspired me to become a cardiologist. He is Tan Sri Datuk Dr. Yahya bin Awang. He is born in 1948 in a small town in Perak, Malaysia. He completed his medical degree at the University of Malaya. He pursued further specialization in cardiothoracic surgery in the United Kingdom. He is the one established the National Heart Institute, IJN, in 1992, which is now one of the leading heart institutes in Southeast Asia. He is a part of the surgical team that performed Malaysia's first successful heart transplant in 1998. He also trained and mentored numerous Malaysian surgeons, helping to advance local expertise in heart surgery. Lastly, he performed coronary artery bypass surgery on Tun Dr. Mahathir bin Mohamad in 1989 and another in 2007.
That's all from me. Thank you.